All right, Dave, it is a Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. That means it's live here on Facebook and YouTube, and you're with us.
Yes, I am, and I'm so excited to be here. I got so engaged in some of the other projects I was doing, I ended up being late for when I would normally get on the show. So I am glad to be here myself.
Yeah, I was sitting here going through questions saying, okay, if Dave doesn't show up, we're going to give it our best shot. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we've got so many people we're helping right now and just projects going on that it's just filling time up more than it has in the past. And I get in my own little world, making sure I'm getting things taken care of.
Yeah, just putting things and checking them off the box and being there. Dave, so let's talk about some of the changes and some of the things you're working on because it's a whole different dynamic. First of all, we're still here helping people understand retirement and get closer to retirement. But what things are you doing a little bit different right now?
Yeah, we're really trying to streamline the process for those we work with so they can better understand how they can get to a safe and secure retirement. We do a great job, in my opinion, on educating through our Getting Safely Through Retirement course. But then it's really making sure they're taking all those next steps they need to put in the work to take the action, to make sure that they're not just learning the information and never using it, but actually putting it into a plan, doing the steps that need to be taken to make the plan work the way it should, and getting themselves into the position they're hoping to be for their retirement future.
Dave, you have met with hundreds of thousands of people that are really engaged that are saying, Dave, I need to make a change. What takes them from the one step to say, I need to do something to saying, I am doing something?
I think there's two sides. One of it is realizing there's a problem that exists out there. And obviously, when we have problems, normal action is to try to solve the problem. But two is finally being able to see that there is a solution. That, hey, 50% of us are going to run out of money before we pass away. It doesn't have to be that way. We can pick which side to be on. It's not one of those things that you got a coach out there that's saying, okay, you got the orange shirt today, you're on this side of the fence. You got the blue shirt, you're on this side of the fence. You get to choose, but you have to make the choice, or inevitably what's going to happen is your life's going to make the choice and these risks, and you're going to end up on the wrong side of the fence at that point.
Well, Dave, I'm glad you're here answering questions because, again, like always, we get so many questions that continually come in through our Facebook page, our Instagram page, through YouTube, also through webinars, through our website. So what we do is we take all of these questions and we do those here for Dave every single week, and we're just trying to get all of those questions answered, or at least give some good feedback. I mean, that's the thing we're trying to do right now, Dave, is just help people figure out, okay, what's stopping them from progressing, and how do we help them get to the next level? Because it may be something as simple as, I don't know what to do with Medicare, I don't know what to do with my Social Security, when do I take my Social Security? And you're here to just kind of give some guidance to help people make some better choices to get them into a safe and secure retirement.
Yeah, that's all we're here for, is to make your life better. We provide the goods and the services and everything that's needed to help you get yourself into a better, more comfortable position. And last thing I want is a bunch of you out there in your retirement years worried that the money's going to run out, that you're going to live a retirement that's not up to the lifestyle you've come to expect. I want you to have some certainty in what's going on there.
And for those of us joining live, please go ahead and if you have a question, go ahead and submit it on Facebook or YouTube. We'll do our best to squeeze it in with our other questions we have today. And if we don't get to it, we always will add that to our opportunities for the week after. All right, Dave, if you are ready, let's go ahead and dive into our first question today and see if we are ready to get going.
Sounds good.
All right, my first one here is from Veronica. Will Medicare cover long-term nursing home care?
Yeah, unfortunately, Veronica, I've got some bad news for you here. Now, there's a segment of this that they would cover. So the initial 20 days, they're going to cover 100%. The next 80 days, you're going to have a co-insurance that you're going to have to pay, which is just over $195 per day, which is very high. But unless they're medically necessary costs, meaning, again, if you've got prescription drugs, if you've got medical devices and those type of things that you're needing to be able to take care of your situation, then yes, they'll cover those. But outside of there, most of it is not being covered because long-term care nursing homes aren't necessarily medical issues. Yes, we're disabled. Yes, we can't do the things we used to do, but I don't need a doctor to feed me Cheerios in the morning if I'm having issues feeding myself. I don't need a nurse to come in and change my trousers, or for the women change the blouses. These can be done by normal, average, everyday people that are willing to take these type of jobs. So fortunately, there's a big gap there. It's costing Americans anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 to cover if you end up in one of these situations where you're having to come out of pocket to pay all those costs.
So, Dave, let's talk about how people are paying for these nursing home cares while we're on this topic. So, you're saying it's Medicaid and long-term care insurance?
Yeah, so when we look at it, Medicaid pays for 2/3 of America. So you end up in a Medicaid funded facility, which isn't going to be anything like, at least I hope it's nothing like where you used to live. Meaning, I guess some of you maybe lived in situations that were worse than what the facility is going to be. But for most of us, hopefully we're living in a much better environment than what the Medicaid funded facility is going to cover. So that's 2/3 of America. We've got about 6% that's figured out financially how they're going to cover it themselves. And then you've probably got another 15, 20% that does have the money to cover it, at least for a period of time. I've talked about it before. I know we've got a friend here in Collierville where we live, beautiful, nice facility. And then she ran out of money and we helped her move. And I'm like, ooh, your lifestyle just went downhill, unfortunately, because you ran out of that cash, because she had to go into a Medicaid facility because she can no longer afford the nice, new, beautiful facility here in our area.
And Dave, people ask this a lot of the times too, but can you use your life insurance policy to pay for your long-term care?
If you've got the right type of policy, now they do have a couple of options. One's to buy a life insurance policy that you pay for a long-term care rider. The other is to have a policy that has a no-fee chronic illness rider, but they call it that for licensing purposes because you have to have a health insurance license to sell long-term care. But if they add this on as a rider, as a chronic illness, and the way it works, end up allowing those that sell these products to not have to get some additional licensing they would need. But it can then be used, that death benefit can be used in advance.
And Dave, I'm glad you brought that up because I have a question coming up. We're going to talk about that with that long-term care rider. But let me just ask you, and just to clarify, Dave, as we talk about we still need Medicare, right? Because that's still going to be able to cover some portion, again, if we're talking about hospital care or doctor services. So we don't want to just completely disregard this.
Yeah, absolutely. Very critical that we have insurance going into our retirement years. At some point, most of us are going to need that care to cover something. I mean, even if it gets to hospice at the end of our lifetime, there may be a situation. Now, those 1 to 5% of you that die of an accident during retirement and have no health issues, maybe it's not such a big problem. But for most of us, it is going to be an issue. And so we do want Medicare. And for most of you, you're going to want some type of supplemental plan, whether that be Medicare Advantage plan or Medicare supplement plans or Medigap plans. You're going to want something to help cover the gaps as well.
All right, Dave, and we'll get down to our other question here about a long-term care rider shortly, but let's get to the next one I have here from Rory. How can I lower my provisional income?
Yeah, so first let's identify what provisional income is for those of you that are watching this that may not be familiar. This is the income the IRS tracks to determine if your Social Security benefits in retirement are going to be taxed. So what they include in here is all earned income, W-2s, 1099s, K-1s, guaranteed payments. All this stuff's added in. And then your tax exempt interest income, which is coming off any municipal bonds you have, and then 1/2 of your Social Security. So if all that adds up and you exceed certain thresholds, you're going to pay tax on up to 85% of your Social Security benefits. So as Rory's asking here, saying, how do we lower that? Well, the only way we do is to get tax-free income. Well, where can we find assets that allow us to get tax-free income? Anything with the name of Roth does not get included in here. Any permanent life insurance is not going to get included in here. If you've got an annuity in a Roth account, again, not going to get included in here. So we've got to move the money into a tax-free environment if we're wanting to lower this provisional income.
Well, Dave, you talked about a few of the assets. So you talked about the Roth IRA and you talked about the life insurance. What about the home equity conversion mortgage?
Yeah, so well, there would be an option to use your reverse mortgage. CR referred to it by its correct name, the home equity conversion mortgage. That's the main one that's used by the government to provide income during retirement for those who want to use the equity out of their home. This is not going to get included in your provisional income because you're basically just borrowing against your own equity to be able to get this cash. So it could be another way to do it again if you're able to use that money instead of taxable money you would have coming from another account.
And Dave, will any of these methods impact our Social Security benefits?
So, when we look at it, I guess, again, when we say impacting benefits, there's many things that we need to look at. One is the benefits we're receiving. I mean, if you're lowering earned income to get your provisional income down and you don't have all the credits you need, yeah, it may lower your payment a little bit. If you do have too much provisional income, obviously you may be getting the same Social Security check, but you're giving way more of it to taxes than other people would. So yeah, I guess in an overall circumstance, most of it is going to have some impact, whether it's directly with a change in your payment or a change in what you really get to keep after you've paid the government their portion of your I guess, partnership, that business deal you got with them where they're going to take their portion.
All right, Dave. Well, let's jump over to my next one here from Sullivan. Can rising interest rates impact my retirement accounts now?
Absolutely, and some level are going to be positive. I guess maybe negative areas when you look at it. From a positive side, obviously, the higher the interest rates are, the more your certificates of disappointment are going to pay you. Those CDs that have had historically low rates here, those bank accounts. If you've got annuity products, they're often based upon interest rates. So as they go up, your annuity products are going to perform a little bit better. Stock market, it can have a negative impact if interest rates get too high because now these companies can't borrow and leverage like they used to. Or if you've got mortgages out there where all of a sudden you're getting a mortgage that's 2 or 3 points higher than it used to be, that could have a negative impact as well. So, yes, it's going to have all kinds of impact, but depending on where your assets at, what you're invested in, it may be a positive impact or it may be a negative impact.
Dave, and I like that you talk about this because everything we really preach to along with this is making sure we diversify your retirement savings.
Yeah, it is. It's really to make sure people get the right plan because, again, in the right situation, again, talk about interest. You'd be out there saying, man, I'm just so happy interest rates are going up. I can't wait for them to go up another 2 or 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a group out there that's saying that because of the way they invest. They've got all their debt paid off. Well, the guy that's out there borrowing, again, you go where back even 3 years ago, you could have got a home mortgage for less than 3%. Now, my understanding is over 5, going on 6. It's doubled where it was. Hey, if I'm borrowing a bunch of cash, keep those interest rates down. I don't want them to be there. So again, it's all like everything in life. It's what side of the coin are you on, and how is all this going to impact you? And the only way you figure that out is put a plan together that's going to allow you to see what impact all these choices are going to have and the impact of the market.
And Dave, I like this too, because again, you've talked about kind of as we're going through the pros and cons of this higher interest rate that, how it can affect retirees, because I think there's good and bad on both sides. But again, as you talk about, as long as you have a plan in place, that it seems like you're going to be well taken care of, or at least on the right path at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you need to understand, anytime a plan's put together, it doesn't always turn out exactly like we want. We have best laid plans many times for our lives, and things can change, but at least gives us some direction. It gives us something to work for. It gives us, hopefully a little more certainty that if we do these steps now, that plan's going to work out, and we're going to have a much better retirement than we otherwise would.
And Dave, a lot of times you've talked about making sure we keep our focus on that long-term retirement strategy versus worrying about what's happening today or tomorrow. Because again, if we have something laid out, then that way we're not going to worry about what happens in the market every day or other situations like that.
You're correct. And we're our own worst enemies. We get in the way of ourselves. We let our emotions drive many of our decisions, which can be good in certain situations. Others, it can be absolutely horrible. And when it comes to money and investing, usually emotion's not a great way to guide the choices that you end up making. Again, if you've got the market that's dropping and in free fall, and we saw this, and we're seeing it again now, saw it over the last few months of just the ups and downs. Again, all of a sudden I want out, I'm going to stay out. And we had many people do that even back in 2020 when the market dropped, never came back in, and yet everything kept going back up. And so again, we've just got to be very careful of our own emotions and not try to be an armchair quarterback that's trying to second guess what's going on.
So it's always that those who sit in the back of the seat are the best drivers
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah, it's amazing how much better coaches everybody thinks they can be from home, but yet they're not the coach. They're not the ones that have the job. So
Yeah. Yeah. They don't have to worry about it. If the play doesn't work out, they don't have to be fired. So exactly. Well, Dave, let's get to my next one here from Kari. Kari's age 50 and is a variable or fixed annuity better?
I don't know that I would refer to them as better or worse. They're different. So again, if we're looking at our retirement, what is it we're trying to accomplish? Personally, I do like fixed annuities much better, the index products, because what they do is provide some certainty. But there's a number of people out there with some of the variable products. They're saying, hey, for my situation, what I'm trying to accomplish, the risk tolerance that I'm willing to accept, I want the variable annuity that's going to give me a better opportunity to get a higher rate of return than a fixed or an index product is going to allow. So again, not saying it's better or worse. It's what do you want to do with your retirement and which product's going to allow you to better get there. But and as a risk advisor, my job's to eliminate risk. I'm going to choose the fixed index annuity any day because of the opportunity it provides to provide some more stability.
And Dave, you kind of touched on it, but let's talk about how these annuities work first for those that are here maybe saying, well, how does this even work for me?
Yeah, so both of these are going to work a little bit different. Let's maybe talk about the variable first. Generally, when we have a variable type product, they're going to have higher fees, not all the time, but you've got higher fees. They're tied completely to the market. So as the market goes up, hey, you get the benefit of all of that. And if we look back over the last couple of years, many people have made a lot of money during that period of time. But if the market drops, you're taking the ride to the bottom, whatever that may be, with that variable product. So challenges when we're talking about retirement assets, so we want to have a certain value so we can get a certain payout. If we've got those down markets, they're killing our potential to do that. So a lot of it's just about timing. Fixed products are designed, and again, we add into there the index portion of this. Fixed products are designed to give you a fixed rate of return. Again, we like to add the index portion inside of there, which then says, hey, we'll use options. So if the market goes up, we get a higher rate of return. But if the market drops that 40%, we're not taking a loss there. And they're spread products. They're not even a fee-based product. You're not going to be paying any fees out of your pocket or coming out of your account to cover those. Your full amount of money is going to work. So now, like any insurance product, I will tell people, buy them for the long term. All insurance products do come with surrender charges that if you were to lapse or take these products off the shelf during the initial 5 to 10 years, could be very costly for you to put them in place. But and we do retirement. We're looking out 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
And Dave, so we talk about the variable annuity and the fixed annuity. Now they both offer benefits, but you're just saying there might be a case where maybe one is more appropriate to use than the other.
Yeah, and some of the variable products too, understand, do still have some floors inside of there, meaning there are some safety nets, and that's part of why you're paying for the fees on there, the additional fee. They're just saying, okay, we're going to give you some safety net. You know, if it goes down 40%, or maybe use 20%, it goes down 20, that's on you. But if it goes down 40, we'll cover that additional amount. So you're still at risk, but if everything falls off the table, you're not going to lose everything. Well, that's where the fees come in on those products usually, is to provide some of those extra benefits.
So Dave, is it safe to say something like this, that you can focus on your own tolerance for risk as you're kind of depending on or looking in what you're going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we look at any type of planning, and again, it doesn't have to be all or one or none. You know, when we look at it, I know Tom Hegna, one of the top advisors in the insurance industry itself, talks about him having both types and using them both effectively. Where you're saying, I'm willing to take some risk of the market on some of this. Other, I want some guarantee there. Myself, I'm more of an index product, a fixed product guy, but entirely up to the individual what they want to put inside of there.
And Dave, I want to remind those that are here with us live, if you do have a question, go ahead and get that submitted on Facebook or YouTube. Like I said, we've got all these other questions that are coming in, and we'll be happy to get that on our plate here as well and try to squeeze those in where we can.
Yeah, another thing, Sierra, I'd bring up too, as we look at it, when we look at the fixed index products, they're what we call principal protected. Again, we're not going to lose any money. Well, we don't want you to be principal protect all of your assets. So again, this is where maybe both products could come in the right plan, is you've still got a bucket of money that we need to be effective and growing and in the market and doing the things the market does. But we've got a bucket of money that we want to protect, because the stupidest thing any of us can do, have enough money for retirement and somehow blow it and then get in a position we can't maintain any type of lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly like your friend that moved out of her place there. You know, if we don't have anything left, it's a bon voyage, and we're trying to figure out our next solution.
Yeah, and again, it's happening all over the country. When we look at it, and we look at the number of people that are passing away, and that 50% of them are dying broke. I mean, I see it all the time, and I get calls all the time. People are going through a process where they're saying, "I'm watching my parents go through this situation. They have nothing. I'm supplementing their income, and I don't have anyone to supplement mine. We need to do something so I'm not in their shoes and just trying to put all the pieces together."
So, Dave, how do you make that connection? How do you help those that are already at that retirement gate that are saying, "Hey, I think I'm good for maybe the next 5 or 10 years, but I'm hoping by then I pass away, or I just take a gamble and see if it works."
A lot of times it's opening people's mind to what they don't know. Again, we look at it from a traditional plan. They maybe met with advisors for decades now that have never really addressed the things we're talking about. So you go through their planning initially, and they're like, "I'm good, I'm fine, nothing I need to do." And then you go through a webinar with us, and you understand that there's 10 of these risks out there. Any one of them could destroy your whole retirement. Starts waking you up a little bit. You're like, "Wait, I haven't heard about this, but I need to learn more." And so that opens the door for us to be able to step in and try to help people address the risk, whether it's to reduce or completely eliminate, but help them figure out what impact they're going to have, and what the risk tolerance is. Again, see, there's people that aren't going to make the best decisions for themselves, because they're okay that if something goes wrong, hey, I'll just deal with it. I'll live with it. Or I don't want to put the work in to get where I really need to be.
Yeah. So, Dave, as we look at all of this, it seems like, is this doom and gloom? Is this something we have to look at to say, "Hey, we have to be in a scare tactic mode in order to make this work"? But are you saying that it's different?
No, it's all about being prepared. Again, when we look at anything in our lives, I mean, if you're going to go out and take a hike, and go out in the desert for a couple of days, you need to have certain things available so that you have a better experience in case something happens. And if something does, you're grateful for it. Again, you're still going to live your life. We still want you to enjoy retirement, but it's sure a lot more fun if you're saying, "Hey, I don't have to worry about all these things. I'm sitting down the Waffle House talking about the world's problems. Now I'm going to solve it with all my buddies. They're all, freaked out because the market just dropped 20%. Well, if I've got guaranteed income, okay, guys, I'll take the pancakes today." I mean, whatever that case is going to be, I'm not going to be overly concerned about that. And that's what we want to help people get to.
Dave, tell me you hang out at the Waffle House weekly with your buddies.
I wish I could. I would love to hang out at the Waffle House. I guess maybe I'm not old enough. I've not found the right group to be able to hang out with, but I would love to be able to go down there every Friday morning and just talk about the world's issues.
That is one place my wife still reminds me as we drive by hundreds of those over here in Georgia. I have never been to the Waffle House. And I said, one day, if it's really early or really late at night, then we'll make use of it.
Yeah, that's usually when we end up there, is usually at odd hours. I know the last time we were there, we had been to an event and it got over late, and we thought, "Oh, we'll be able to go anywhere and get food." Well, Waffle House was anywhere.
Yep. That's a late night treasure right there. Well, Dave, you talked about this one a little bit earlier as we talked on it. So before we dive into Dale's question, let's talk about what is a long-term care rider.
Yeah. So again, understand, when we look at the long-term care rider itself, it is where you are buying long-term care insurance in addition to your life insurance. You're going to pay out of pocket some amount of money. There's various riders that you can get with your insurance policies to help, again, help them perform better, solve different risks. And with a long-term care rider itself, that's you buying a policy separate that's going to cover a long-term care event.
Perfect. So Dale is asking, how does a long-term care rider work under a life insurance policy?
Yeah, so basically what you would have, if you're talking that, again, understand there's a chronic illness rider that's completely different. If we're talking long-term care rider, it's going to be a separate policy. You have a long-term care event, you're going to have guidelines underneath that rider that are going to give you options to access so much money based upon a doctor signing a note, generally saying that you can't do 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. Once that happens, you would then invoke the rights that come with that rider. That again, separate policy, separate insurance, the way it works. And then once you pass away, you'd get all the benefits of your life insurance policy that you bought with it.
Dave, I've read on as people are buying life insurance and they get this a long-term care rider, a lot of times they're not really spending the extra time to read those terms and conditions. And they said they haven't had the best success. And so what advice do you have for those people that have kind of ran into that issue?
Yeah, it's a big problem that we have in America, and we all deal with it. There's studies that go out all the time talking about how people just get signed up for everything because they're so long, and we oftentimes fall into a situation that we know that if we have a disagreement, we're not going to be able to participate in whatever that is. And again, if I've got to agree to terms and conditions of an amusement park or something to go to, if I disagree with those terms and conditions, maybe they're not letting me into the amusement park or the website that I want to use. So we've gotten into this habit of just believing that everyone's got our best interests in mind and that everything that happens is going to work out the way we think it will. Well, that's not always the case. So 2 things people have got to do when we're talking about these type of products, you've got to spend the time to go through, because you do have choices. Again, because someone's given you one product, it isn't like Facebook that, again, if you want to be on Facebook, you got to agree to what they're requiring you to agree to. You get the choices. So you do have the opportunity out there to make the choice. So read the documents. And 2, just making sure you're with a reputable advisor that's got your best interest at heart. And sometimes that's hard to determine. You've got individuals in your life you trust, but when it comes down to it, really are more worried about themselves than about you.
So Dave, would it be safe to say that the goal of this is probably to provide some financial protection if you're no longer able to take care of yourself, like you were talking earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we've all got to consider too. We all forget that part of aging for many of us is losing our mental abilities. It's not just a physical ability, it's our mental abilities to do things. All of a sudden, you're in a position that you can't make those decisions. Things are looking a little different for you and can become a little more complex if you don't have everything structured the way you should.
All right, Dave. Well, let me get down to my next one here. This is from, let's see. I'm going to take one here live, Dave. I'm going to squeeze one in here from E-Ring here. Let me go ahead and get it on the screen here. Student loan debt relief today. Inflation going up more?
Yes, I everything that I see from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, that they're saying it's going up. Everything from I see as an advisor, it's going up. Again, I think that's just horrible precedent. I mean, you've got so many kids out there that worked their guts out, did everything they could to pay for their college. Now, there are benefits. They're going to be better human beings. Many of them, I will say, from all of a sudden we get into this situation where people are just covering all of our expenses. But I mean, $300 billion to wipe out debt. Look at where we're at in this situation. I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but look at where we're at with education as a whole. Why is it so expensive? Because the government stepped in and offer to back every one of those loans. So if I'm an education organization, well, I can charge 3 times as much. Sooner I'm going to get my money. The government will pay it up front, and then they can deal with everybody on the back end. Well, all of a sudden we're saying, let's give them more money so they can charge more money and cause more problems. Again, I think it's going to the wrong group of people. I'd much rather, if we're going to spend it, give it to those who could never afford to go to college, didn't have the knowledge to figure out how to even get student loans. Let's get those people educated and moving along versus, again, those making $100,000 a year, you got the ability to pay it off. And I had my own. I went through the same process.
Dave, this is such a hot topic right now, again, especially as you're talking about the billions of dollars associated with it. So how do we even deal with this right now? What's the best step that we can even look at on our side to say, okay, what can we do to make sure that we're staying ahead of this?
Yeah, the challenge is as these decisions get made, they're just weakening America. I mean, that's the reality of what's happening. I know there are others that don't agree with that, and everybody has their opinion. That's the great thing about where we live, is we all have our own opinions to what's going on. But unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do. I mean, again, if this gets signed into law, the money's going to go out. It's just like how it happened in the pandemic. All we can do is better prepare ourselves for the future. again, how do we inflation adjust our retirement so that won't have such an impact on us? And I will tell you that is something we can do, is we can look individually at our own lives and say, okay, the money's going to get spent one way or another. We're going to pay the taxes, and we've warned you they're going to double. And yeah, I don't like what they're spending the money on, but I can prepare myself against time when that happens, and really what we need to get people doing.
And I love that you brought that up, Dave, because that's kind of the point. We want to make sure that people are taking time today. They're getting that money set aside, and they're prepared. I think that's the overall plan that we're trying to get to today, is making sure that you're prepared and you're heading into this with a plan. Because like you talk about, heading on a vacation, and if you don't have your goal set, you're just going to be driving all over, just trying to hope to get to the right location.
Well, and we keep thinking that inflation is going to get under control. And again, when we look at it, there are certain things that are going down, but it's not for the right reasons. Gas prices are cheaper today because we stopped driving. Nobody could afford to drive. So there's less demand for the supply. Again, as we look at canceling all this debt, some people are out there saying, oh, now people are going to have more money to spend on other things. Guess what, folks? We haven't had student loan payments for 2 or 3 years now. There's no extra money out there that's going to start automatically circulating. Again, this was money that people were not spending for their debt anyway, as we look at the last period of time. So yeah, long term, again, does there become some more money? But we know anytime the government puts this type of money into the market, it's going to have long-term inflation consequences. And my sad thing is, we keep doing this. 2023, I've always believed by the end of 2023, we'd have this under control. I'm not sure we get it under control by then if this keeps happening.
I definitely agree, Dave. Well, thank you so much for being here, everyone on Facebook and YouTube. And for those that are on replay, we really appreciate you being here. And I just feel like it's just, Dave, I'm looking for that final stamp to let everyone know that, yes, things are still going to be okay, but we've got to do our part.
Yeah, again, we've got to live our own lives. I look at where I live. I live in a beautiful community. I've got wonderful neighbors. We're in a safe environment, and all this chaos that goes around us, we can get ourselves to where we want to be. We can make things work. We can financially make it happen. Now, does it mean we're going to have to tighten our belts a little bit more? Does it mean we may not be able to travel, 3 times a year? We only get to go 1 time a year, whatever the case may be for someone. We drive a Hyundai instead of a Lexus. I mean, whatever the case may be, we may have to make those adjustments, but we can still be happy with it. I look back at my life, and there was a period of time we had 4 of our 8 children, and we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. This was by choice. This wasn't because we're required to. By choice, we moved into a resort area, had a 1-bedroom apartment. We lived in that home for about 2 months. So that was the happiest time of our lives. We had no monetary things available because they had all been put in storage. We had this little apartment, and our family just loved that experience. And so again, just because we don't have all the comforts we used to have doesn't mean we've got to be miserable and not enjoy our lives. And this is what we try to help people. Hey, get to the retirement that life's going to allow you to have, and then enjoy it. Make the most of those years.
I definitely love that. And then, Dave, I want to remind those that if they're interested in getting their question, you can answer it. Go to retirementriskadvisors.com, go to our contact us, and go ahead and submit your question, and we'll get it on a future show. And if you are looking to go to Dave's flagship webinar, you can get to Getting Safely Through. You can find that on the website under the events tab. And the next one I have, Dave, on here is August 31st at 3 o'clock Central Time on Wednesday.
Yep, next Wednesday.
Just want to remind everyone to get signed up for that, because that is the flagship presentation for 2 hours that'll completely blow your mind and help you get started on this retirement journey.
Yep. Best time spent as you look at your future retirement.
And for everyone else, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Dave. And we'll see you guys all again next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Central Time.
Goodbye.
See ya.